Somebody who is kind of epitomizes what you think your country stands for. There's always been a major ambition. A dramatic scene has unfolded at Buckingham Palace as Prince William has been left shattered after hearing a devastating confession from Princess Anne about King Charles's last request. But what devastating truth did Princess Anne reveal about Charles's last request? And how will Prince William cope with this heartbreaking information? Join us as we uncover the details of this wish, the letter that changed everything. The grand room grew quiet as Princess Anne stepped inside, holding a sealed letter. There was no fanfare, no music, just a calm that made everyone stop and notice. The air felt different, heavier, as if something very important was about to happen. Anne didn't need anyone to introduce her. The look on her face and the letter in her hands said everything without words. She stood in the center, surrounded by family members who all understood what this moment meant. This message wasn't for Parliament, the press, or the world. It was meant only for the family. King Charles had written a personal farewell and trusted Anne to deliver it. Standing tall, Anne showed the quiet strength she had built over the years as she gently broke the seal and began to read. The room held its breath. Her calm voice carried a quiet power that drew everyone in without needing to raise the volume. She started with, "His Majesty's ultimate wish," and from that moment all eyes and ears were fixed on her. People guessed what might come next. Some expected soft, loving goodbye words. Others thought it would be a firm statement naming Prince William the rightful heir. But no one could guess what actually followed. The first name spoken wasn't William's, it was Catherine's. Hearing Catherine's name caused a subtle ripple through the room. There were no loud gasps or dramatic reactions, just a quiet shock that made the moment feel even stronger. Catherine, the future king's wife, was suddenly seen as something much more important. The letter didn't take away William's place as heir, but it shifted the focus, making Catherine a key figure in the monarchy's future. As Anne read, Prince William's face changed with every word. He had trained his whole life to take the crown, to lead the nation, to hold that great responsibility. But now it seemed like everything he believed in was slipping away. His hands gripped the table tightly, turning white from the pressure. His breath came short and quick. The man expected to rule looked more lost than powerful. There was no anger or jealousy in his eyes, only deep sadness, a painful disbelief. It wasn't about losing the throne. It was about accepting that Catherine was stepping into a new and important role. The room didn't burst into tears or rush away. The reaction was quiet, soft. The father's final words didn't shout, they whispered. But in that whisper was more strength than any crown or title could hold. So why was the letter given to Princess Anne? Why not Camilla, his beloved, or the Prime Minister? Not even a special advisor? What does Anne signify for the monarchy at large? Stick with us. Why Princess Anne was the voice of a king's last wish. After the letter was read, many wondered not about King Charles's words, but why Princess Anne was the one chosen to deliver them. It wasn't a bishop or a lawyer, and it wasn't Prince William either. Instead, it was Anne who stepped forward. The reason wasn't about popularity or rank. It was trust. King Charles chose Anne because she was the only person he completely trusted. For many years, Anne quietly held the family together without anyone really noticing. While others in the royal family faced scandals or struggled under the public eye, Anne never chased fame or complained. She simply did her work with grace and loyalty, always putting her duty first. Even through hard times and personal losses, Anne remained strong and steady. That day there was no big ceremony, no crowds or cameras outside the palace, just a small, quiet room filled with close family members waiting. Anne came in alone, holding a sealed letter from her brother. She didn't need an introduction. Her years of faithful service and quiet strength had earned her the respect of everyone present. This letter wasn't just words on paper. It was King Charles's final message to those closest to him, a message filled with love, truth, and guidance. Anne was the perfect person to carry it because her bond with Charles was different from others. They grew up together side by side under Queen Elizabeth II's watchful eye. While the world saw a prince and princess, they were just siblings, sharing lives, ups and downs. Charles was known for his kindness and thoughtful nature, but the weight of royal duties was heavy on him. Anne, on the other hand, was brave, practical, and fiercely independent. She didn't need the spotlight. She was happy to quietly do what had to be done. Together, their differences balanced perfectly. Charles was gentle and thoughtful, Anne's strong and decisive. Their relationship was built on respect and shared experience. As Charles prepared to become king, Anne took on her own role in the monarchy. She worked hard in public duties, charities, and even military roles, all without seeking attention. Charles came to depend on her calm support during difficult times, family disputes, public criticism, and personal grief. Anne never sought to outshine him. Her care came from love and duty. When Queen Elizabeth II passed, Anne quietly accompanied her mother's coffin from Scotland to London. No speeches, no show, just a steady reminder that Anne was the family's rock. As Charles became king, Anne stood faithfully by his side, not for power, but out of loyalty. She was his closest advisor, offering steady wisdom without question. Few knew how deeply Charles valued Anne's honest advice. Her constant support and devotion made her a key figure in his life. She didn't ask for praise or special treatment. Through times of change, Anne was the family's steady hand, helping Charles modernize the monarchy gently and carefully. She also helped guide younger family members, always putting the crown's well-being first. Anne and Charles shared a special bond beyond family ties. They trusted each other through challenges, personal struggles, and the pressure of royal life. Their relationship was free of jealousy or rivalry. Anne was one of the few who could speak openly to Charles without fear or formality. Anne's wisdom came not only from experience, but from her choice to live simply. She raised her children without royal titles, giving them a more normal life. Charles supported her decision. Together they showed that respecting tradition could go hand in hand with embracing change. Anne also connected with Catherine, Princess of Wales. Their friendship grew through shared values and quiet support, not grand events. Catherine admired Anne's strength, and Anne admired Catherine's grace. They worked together at public events, united by their sense of duty. In Charles's last years, he saw in Catherine the same quiet strength he trusted in Anne. That is why she was chosen to carry his last message, not just about who would follow him, but about the heart and future of the royal family. On that day, Anne wasn't there to show power or seek praise. She was there to keep a promise, to stand by her brother, protect her family, and hold the line with steady hands. With calm and confidence, she shared words that would shape the monarchy's future, knowing deeply what it meant to carry such a responsibility. What was Catherine's response to this sudden shift? It might have felt like a betrayal to her husband, or even worse, fear of failure. We will find out in the next chapter. Catherine's unshaken moment. Before anyone could truly understand what had just happened, before the shock could settle deep inside, a new figure stepped forward and changed the future of the monarchy forever. She didn't say a word, yet her presence spoke louder than anything else. As Prince William stood still, his breath short and his hands shaking, every eye in the room quietly turned to the woman standing beside him, not to the weighty, heavy words just spoken. Catherine stayed calm, showing no signs of worry or doubt. She didn't rush to find the right words or try to fix the moment. Instead, she stood steady, peaceful, and strong. In a place full of old traditions, great titles, and silent history, It wasn't a royal speech or bold announcement that brought calm back. It was her steady, quiet presence. She wasn't silent because she wanted to avoid what was happening. Her silence held power, a deep inner strength, in a room where many voices were loud and commanding. Catherine's quiet calmness gently pulled everyone together. Without speaking or moving much, she made clear who she was and what she meant to the family. In that single, unbroken moment, everyone saw that Catherine was more than just the future king's wife. She was a leader in her own right. While William had been prepared for his royal life since he was a baby, it was Catherine's quiet strength that truly held the room's attention. She didn't stand like someone demanding power, and her eyes didn't say, "I expect." But the message she sent without words was clear: confidence, strength, and readiness. In royal circles, respect usually comes from family history, passed down from one generation to the next. But Catherine's respect was earned, not given. She slowly and quietly gained admiration, never chasing the spotlight or asking for praise. She didn't try to shine or draw attention. Instead, people were drawn to her because she stayed strong when others wavered, kept warmth when others grew cold, and showed kindness even in tough times. In a world full of distractions, Catherine's silence spoke louder than anything else in the room. She wasn't just present, she was a steady rock. While William seemed overwhelmed, she stood calm and sure. Without needing many words or grand actions, she showed she was ready for whatever came next. This moment wasn't about fancy crowns or shiny titles. It was about quiet strength, about courage without noise, about a woman who understood the true power of staying calm when everything feels like chaos. Among centuries-old traditions and careful rituals, Catherine's peaceful manner was a gentle reminder of something even more important: stability. In that room were people with long royal bloodlines, watching her steady courage. How she kept calm and faced the moment head-on left a mark on everyone there. This quiet moment changed how they saw her. Her calmness proved she was capable. But has she been prepared for this for the very beginning? Or did she just grow into it? Let's see. A story of quiet strength. Catherine's rise to royalty didn't start in a palace or under bright camera lights. Her journey wasn't marked by grand speeches or sudden fame. The beginning of her story happened long before her name was known, in a quiet village far away from the royal world. Before she wore beautiful gowns and attended fancy events, she wore simple school clothes and walked along peaceful country paths. Before she became the Duchess of Cambridge, she was just Kate from Berkshire, a normal girl living a calm life in a quiet part of England. Catherine Middleton's journey began in a cozy, humble home, surrounded by green fields and everyday family moments. Her school days didn't have royal carriages or shining chandeliers above the dinner table. Instead, she enjoyed happy times in the kitchen, picnics with family, and gentle walks through the countryside. Growing up in Bucklebury, Catherine learned what it means to be kind, honest, and strong. Her parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, were not born into royal families or noble bloodlines. They were hard-working, ordinary people who built a successful business called Party Pieces with their own effort. Because of their hard work, they gave their children a happy and loving childhood. Beyond material comfort, they taught Catherine and her siblings important lessons: how to stay strong when life is hard, how to be kind to others, and how to stay humble even when things go well. These lessons helped shape Catherine into the calm and graceful woman she would become. Catherine's early years were simple and happy. She mostly grew up in Berkshire, except for a short time in Amman, Jordan, where she attended an English-speaking nursery school. After returning to England, she went to St. Andrew's School in Pangbourne. Even as a child, she showed a gentle and calm nature. Teachers noticed her kindness and quiet strength. She wasn't loud or eager for attention, but people felt comforted by her presence. she carried a quiet confidence that would grow to be one of her best qualities. Later, the family moved to Bucklebury, where Catherine continued her education. She briefly went to Downhouse School before transferring to Marlborough College. At Marlborough, she was known more for her calm attitude and leadership than for wild parties or trouble. She loved sports, was captain of the hockey team, and earned the prestigious Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award. Even as a teenager, Catherine showed natural leadership without needing to be the loudest in the room. She was dependable, steady, and earned the respect of everyone around her. After finishing school, Catherine was accepted to the University of Edinburgh, but chose to wait a year before starting. During that year, she did many different things, studying art in Florence, volunteering in Chile, and working on boats in Southampton. These experiences took her out of her comfort zone and helped her grow in confidence and strength. She didn't chase attention or try to impress the royal family. Instead, she focused on learning, exploring, and becoming stronger at her own pace. Catherine didn't become successful overnight. It took years of quiet progress, small achievements, and steady work. She learned from her parents' example, hard work, kindness, and humility. She was taught to value respect more than fame, to show honesty and consistency, instead of seeking applause with flashy words, a love written by fate. Fate works in quiet, surprising ways. It doesn't always shout or rush. Sometimes it waits patiently to bring two people together without them even knowing. That's how it was for Catherine and William. Their story didn't start at a royal event or a grand party. It began softly in a small old university town, a place filled with books, narrow streets, and students living simple lives. Catherine went to the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. She first studied psychology, but later switched to art history. In that peaceful town, she met Prince William. Their first meeting was simple. They shared classes, knew the same people, and often stayed up late talking about life, exams, and dreams. They laughed, studied together, and slowly formed a close friendship. Their bond grew quietly away from cameras and gossip. Catherine never chased attention or tried to impress William. She stayed true to herself, kind, calm, and real. Even when rumors about their relationship started, she stood by him, offering quiet, steady support without asking for anything. Their love story wasn't built on fairy tale moments. It grew from simple acts of kindness, trust, and respect. Catherine's strength wasn't loud or showy. It was calm and gentle. She stayed graceful in tough times, never letting gossip or pressure change who she was. By 2005, people noticed her more as she did well in her studies. Even with the media watching, she stayed calm and focused on her life. When she and William briefly broke up in 2007, rumors swirled, but Catherine kept her head high. She leaned on her friends, stayed busy, and refused to let gossip bring her down. Catherine's specialness wasn't about royal titles or money. It came from her kind heart, quiet strength, and peaceful spirit. Even Queen Elizabeth II noticed how Catherine remained gentle and steady despite the heavy royal traditions around her. She never pretended or sought the spotlight. She stayed loyal to her true self, and that quiet confidence drew William closer. In a world where many tried to impress him, Catherine simply stood beside him as a real friend and partner. Their love grew in ordinary, everyday moments. Slowly, William realized he couldn't imagine life without her. When he chose to propose, it wasn't at a palace. It happened under the wide skies of Kenya, a place wild and free. The ring he gave her once belonged to Princess Diana, a woman loved by many and gone too soon. That sapphire and diamond ring wasn't just a gift. It carried memories and deep meaning. William's proposal wasn't just about marriage. It was a promise to honor the past and build a new future together. When he placed that ring on Catherine's finger, he welcomed her into both his family and a royal story filled with joy, loss, and hope. From that moment, Catherine wasn't just a duchess or princess. She carried the memory of a woman the world missed deeply. People often compared Catherine to Diana, hoping this new chapter would be one of peace and love. But Catherine didn't try to be Diana. She honored her quietly by being kind, graceful, and caring in her own way. She stepped into royal life without losing who she was, the kind, steady girl from Berkshire. She accepted her new world with a hopeful heart and a gentle smile, never chasing fame, but embracing her role with quiet courage. The day the crown became her burden. On April 29, 2011, the whole world turned to London for a very special day. It wasn't just a wedding. It was a day filled with meaning and excitement. Around 2 billion people watched, hoping to see a beautiful love story. The streets were packed with happy people waving flags, and the bells of Westminster Abbey rang in the background. Many saw it as a joyful celebration, but for Catherine Middleton, it was much more. It was the day her life quietly changed in ways she could have never imagined. As Catherine walked into Westminster Abbey, she wasn't just walking toward her prince. She was stepping into a world of history, strict rules, and constant attention. A world very few could truly understand. While everyone admired her sparkling tiara, stunning dress, and gentle smile, Catherine carried something heavy inside her heart. She knew that this wasn't just about love and vows. She was becoming part of a royal family that wasn't always kind to those who joined it from the outside. The grand wedding, with its beautiful music, old stone walls, and flowers everywhere, felt like a dream to those watching. But for Catherine, walking down that long aisle meant much more. It was a moment filled with hopes and fears. Every step she took was watched closely by millions of eyes, all wondering if she would fit into the royal world. Inside the palace, people hoped she could bring peace and steadiness to a family that needed it badly. The whole world was charmed by the magical event, but Catherine could see what was behind it. The tiara on her head wasn't just a pretty crown, it was like a shield, protecting her from a world that could turn harsh in a heartbeat. It reminded her of other royal brides who once smiled at their weddings, but later struggled under the heavy weight of royal life. The fancy carriages, cheering crowds, and public displays of affection looked perfect on the outside. But Catherine knew her real challenge was just beginning. Even though it was a nerve-wracking day, Catherine stayed calm and showed quiet strength. She surprised people who thought she might stumble. She wasn't pretending either. This was who she truly was, a kind, steady woman who faced hard moments without changing her values. She didn't act for the cameras, and she didn't seek attention. The way she handled everything won over even her harshest critics. The media tried to pick her apart. They watched her dress, her waves, her smile, and even the way she looked at people. Experts and gossipers talked about every little thing, hoping to find a flaw, but Catherine never gave in. It wasn't because she was perfect, it was because she had spent years quietly preparing for this life. She hadn't just gotten ready for her wedding day, she was ready for a future where privacy would be rare, peace would be hard to find, and every mistake would be turned into a headline. Many people missed the truth. This wedding wasn't the end of a fairy tale. It was the start of a long and difficult path. Catherine was stepping into a world of duties and troubles she hadn't fully expected. Marrying a prince meant joining a family that could easily swallow up anyone who didn't learn how to survive inside it. Catherine understood what lay ahead, and she accepted it with grace. The wedding looked perfect to the cameras, but they couldn't capture the courage of a young woman walking bravely into the unknown, fully aware of what it could cost her. Behind the bright smiles, the sparkling jewels, and the happy crowds, there was a heart quietly preparing for the battles ahead. While the world dreamed of a fairy tale, Catherine was beginning a journey that would test her patience, her strength, and her kindness. The years that followed proved what she had expected. The hardest moments didn't always come from the press or the public. Many times, the most painful struggles came from inside the royal family itself. The biggest battles were fought in quiet places behind palace doors, in private talks where a few simple words could hurt more than any newspaper story. But through it all, Catherine stayed strong. She didn't try to outshine those who came before her. She wasn't looking for praise. She calmly took on her new life, knowing the weight she carried was one she'd never be able to fully put down. And with every new challenge, she showed the world that even though the crown could be heavy, her heart and courage would never fail her. For her to emerge victorious, she had to face struggles and pain. What did she face? How far did it hold her back? Let's dive in. A queen at heart. When Catherine, the Princess of Wales, gently shared her battle with cancer, the whole world seemed to stop. In that moment, everything else faded, and her words were all that mattered. There were no grand speeches or fancy displays, just Catherine sitting quietly on a simple bench under gray skies. Her voice was calm, steady, and brave. That day, she wasn't just a princess. She was a mother, a wife, and a woman facing something very hard. For years, people knew Catherine for her kind heart and quiet strength. She always stayed calm in the spotlight, careful and graceful. But in March 2024, the world saw another side of her, a side filled with bravery, honesty, and warmth. Through a soft and touching video, Catherine shared something no one expected. After surgery, doctors found cancer in her body. Since the end of February, she had quietly gone through chemotherapy away from cameras and public life. Her message touched more than royal fans or palace followers. It wasn't about a royal family's health scare. It was about a woman facing something big and frightening with grace. She didn't make it sound dramatic. She spoke gently, asking for space so her family could handle the sad news. The power of her message didn't come from her title. It came from her kind human heart. Catherine knew the world was watching, but stayed focused on her family, her husband, and her health. After sharing her news, she quietly stepped away from public life to heal. The world responded with kindness. People everywhere sent messages of love, prayers, and hope. For a little while, the usual gossip faded, and people came together in support. The Princess of Wales made her first public appearance in June 2024 at Trooping the Colour, a big royal event. Even though she was still in treatment, Catherine stood with her family, looking calm and beautiful in a simple, quiet way that touched hearts. Though still hurting, her spirit stayed strong. As time passed, Catherine chose her appearances carefully. Each time she stepped out, people welcomed her with warmth and cheers. In the fall, she shared another video message, this time with good news. Her chemotherapy was finished. Though the road ahead remained tough, she felt stronger and ready to slowly return to her duties. In October 2024, Catherine took a big step back into the world. She visited families in Southport with Prince William after a sad incident. Even while recovering, Catherine focused on comforting others with kind words and gentle care. That simple visit reminded everyone of the deep kindness that made her special, long before she became a princess. In January 2025, she reached another important moment. Catherine returned to the Royal Marsden Hospital, where she thanked the doctors and nurses who had helped her and spent time with other patients. It wasn't a fancy visit, but it meant everything. It showed her deep gratitude and her wish to lift others up. Not long after, Catherine happily shared that her cancer was in remission. She spoke honestly about how life after treatment wasn't as simple as she had hoped. There were new routines to adjust to and feelings to heal, but she stayed hopeful, looking ahead, not clinging to the past. In March 2025, Catherine showed her strength again by joining the St. Patrick's Day parade with the Irish Guards, a tradition she loved. Dressed in a beautiful, simple outfit, she smiled warmly at the soldiers. She looked healthy, glowing, and calm, showing the world she wasn't just surviving, she was truly living. Soon after, she appeared with the royal family at the Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey. It was comforting to see her there, standing tall with grace. But this time, there was something new in her, a quiet, peaceful strength shaped by all she had faced. Catherine's story became something truly inspiring. She wasn't asking for pity or pretending to be fine. By showing her pain and staying strong, she touched hearts everywhere. Messages poured in from people she'd never met, survivors, grieving families, and many others who saw her as a shining light of hope. They didn't send messages because she was a princess. They sent them because she was human. Even though she was scared, she kept smiling as a mother. She held her family close as a wife. She showed the world that real strength isn't about being perfect. It's about holding your head up in the hardest times. Even Queen Elizabeth saw strength in her while she was alive. She saw a leader in a falling monarchy. What was Queen Elizabeth's thought? Let's find out. A message from the Queen's heart. Some words are whispered so softly, exchanged between hearts in secret, never meant for anyone else to hear. But those quiet words often hold the deepest truths. Before Catherine, Princess of Wales, became a symbol of strength and grace, there was one private moment that captured her spirit better than any title ever could. Queen Elizabeth once softly said, "She possesses the inner realm of royalty." Catherine's greatness didn't come from her crown or the grand way people treated her. What made her different was the way she carried herself, with calm, quiet grace. She knew the importance of her role, but she never let it control her. Catherine didn't chase after attention or power. She simply lived with quiet courage, carrying out her duties with kindness and heart. Queen Elizabeth, who had seen so many people hunger for power and importance, noticed something rare in Catherine. She saw a strong and steady soul, someone who didn't need approval or applause to know her worth. This story was never about rules, traditions, or titles. It was about character, real strength, the kind that takes root deep within, grows slowly and gently. Catherine's rise wasn't because of royal orders or fancy ceremonies. It started long before anyone knew her name, long before she walked through palace doors. When the world first turned its eyes toward her, it wasn't because of scandal or drama. It was because she made people feel something different. In a world full of celebrities who often seemed distant, Catherine stayed warm, kind, and real. Though people praised her gentle nature and grace, the palace held on to a quiet secret, waiting for the right time to share it. After King Charles made his final wishes known, the family gathered in stillness. No one spoke, no cameras clicked. The room was filled with quiet, heavy meaning. In that hushed moment, Princess Anne slowly reached into her coat and pulled out an old letter. It was worn and faded but treasured, with Queen Elizabeth's familiar handwriting on it. This letter wasn't meant for history books or royal records. It was a personal note for the family, to be opened when emotions ran high and hearts were open. Anne unfolded the letter and read it softly, her voice full of feeling. In the letter, Queen Elizabeth spoke of private talks she had shared with Anne in the final years of her reign. They weren't for the public or the press, just tender words shared in quiet, trusted spaces. And in those talks, one thought came up again and again. The Queen believed Catherine already had the heart of a queen, not someday, but already. Long before the world's attention, long before marriage or illness, Elizabeth saw something lasting in Catherine. It wasn't about royal blood or family ties. It was about instinct and grace. Queen Elizabeth wasn't known for handing out compliments freely. Her words were precious, spoken only when truly meant. But in this letter, there was no hesitation. She called Catherine more than a royal wife. She saw her as vital as someone steady, strong, and gentle. She praised Catherine for being kind, yet firm, for leading with patience, for staying strong in lonely moments, and for having a quiet dignity that didn't need a crown to shine. This wasn't a title given like a prize. It was a truth only the Queen could see, while others were too busy with noise and show. In Catherine's soft touch and steady heart, Elizabeth glimpsed a brighter path for the monarchy. Not one ruled by harsh words or cold tradition, but by the quiet strength that keeps moving forward, steady and sure, by compassion that holds steady even when times get hard. While the Queen looked ahead, the world around them was changing fast. Old traditions were fading, and familiar faces were leaving. But through it all, one thing stayed constant. A gentle woman who drew people in, without raising her voice, who earned loyalty without giving orders, and who led without needing to be seen. The royal family falling apart. Within the towering walls of the Grand Palace, where symbols of power and unity once stood proudly, a quiet story was unfolding. The royal household, always seen as strong and steady, was slowly falling apart. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Smiling faces waved to crowds from balconies, beautiful events went on as planned, and the rich history of the monarchy was displayed with pride. But behind those heavy doors, there was trouble. The family carried heavy secrets, unspoken pain, and growing problems no one dared to speak of. At the heart of this silent storm was Prince William. For years, he was seen as the bright light of the royal family, the one who would bring new hope and life to the crown. But now, William was trapped between the old ways and the new world. His job wasn't just to get ready to be king anymore. It was about protecting a crown that was losing its meaning in a world that was changing too fast. The first crack showed when Prince Harry decided to step away from royal duties. At first, it looked like a simple family disagreement, but very quickly it turned into something much bigger. Through their interviews, Harry and Meghan didn't just share personal struggles. They revealed deep problems inside the royal family. They spoke about discrimination, loneliness, and lies. These were not small family fights. They were powerful truths that shook the foundations of a royal house known for its silence. For William, it wasn't just the pain of losing his brother's closeness. It was also a wound to the royal family's image. People started to see the cracks in what was once a picture of perfect unity. The public began to question if the crown really stood for the values it claimed. William struggled to carry out his duties in a world that now wanted honesty instead of polished stories. Then came the scandal of Prince Andrew. It was loud, messy, and filled with court cases, money deals, and shocking tales that used to be whispered in secret. But now it was everywhere. The disgrace hung over the royal family like a dark cloud, no matter how much they tried to push it aside. Every time they appeared in public, people remembered the scandals behind the smiles. William was expected to be the one to keep the royal family steady. He was the future king, known for his kindness and modern ideas. But it wasn't easy. Every choice he made was judged. His quiet moments were seen as weakness. His words were picked apart. William was stuck between the old traditions, where you stayed quiet and graceful, and a new world that asked for truth and heart. He began to question the old lessons he grew up with. The royal family could no longer hide behind ceremonies and customs. People wanted to know the real stories, even if those stories showed that the royals were not perfect. The picture of a flawless, united royal family was slowly fading. What was the message from the king? Let's see. A father's last words. The letter held more meaning than words could ever say. It wasn't fancy or decorated, but written on a simple old piece of paper. The edges were soft and worn from time, and the ink had started to fade. There were no golden stamps or royal symbols. This wasn't a message from a king to his people. It was a loving note from a father who knew his days were few. Without his crown, without the heavy weight of royal duty, King Charles shared something deeper than any speech he'd ever given. This letter wasn't for the world to see. It was meant for his son and the gentle woman standing by his side. It wasn't about ruling a kingdom or following ancient rules. It was about love, trust, and leaving behind something that truly mattered. When Princess Anne slowly opened the letter and began to read, the room fell still. All the formal tension of royal gatherings disappeared. At that moment, titles didn't matter. Crowns didn't matter. What was left was a family. Heartbroken, mourning a father and a king. Every word Anne spoke felt honest and tender, stripped of all the usual royal show. Then came the words that meant more than any royal command. The king's wish for his son was simple, to protect her, and when the world became uncertain, to let her lead. He believed in her quiet wisdom, the kind of strength others often overlook. In those plain, gentle words, Charles did something the monarchy had rarely done. He placed his hope, not in old traditions or royal bloodlines, but in the strength of a person's heart. This wasn't a plan or a royal order. It was the honest wish of a man who saw life more clearly as it neared its end. He understood now that a crown isn't just for the one born to wear it. It's for the one strong enough to carry its heavy weight. He was speaking of Catherine, the woman who never asked for power, never demanded attention, but quietly showed she could lead without needing a title. She led with kindness, patience, and steady grace. King Charles didn't place a crown on her head. Instead, he placed his trust in her heart. When he said, "Let her take the lead," old traditions quietly cracked, making room for something new. It wasn't about who had the most titles or who followed the oldest rules. It was about recognizing rare, beautiful strength in someone and believing in them. The new heart of the monarchy, the world around the monarchy, was changing quickly. Old rules and customs that once seemed unbreakable were starting to fall apart. In the middle of all this, there was one person quietly holding everything together. Catherine didn't try to change the monarchy with loud speeches or bold moves. She didn't force new ideas or demand attention. Instead, she stayed calm, steady, and softly strong. While others rushed for the spotlight, wanting to be noticed and praised, Catherine chose a different way. She brought peace and quiet confidence. People saw her as a rock in a shaky royal world. When Prince William struggled to find the right words, Catherine's quiet presence said everything. She didn't complain or focus on unimportant things. She stayed beside him with patience, hope, and a heart full of understanding. She watched closely because she believed the royal family could still have a good future. William soon realized something very important. The monarchy could no longer depend on crowns, titles, and ceremonies to survive. The fancy clothes, old traditions, and polite waves to the crowd felt empty now. What the royal family truly needed wasn't more show or formality. It needed kindness. It needed simple, honest care. And right next to him was a woman who already carried that kindness in everything she did, even without a royal title. Far from the noise of fashion headlines and public events, Catherine was quietly becoming the steady hand the royal family so desperately needed. It wasn't about becoming queen one day. It was about being a strong, gentle heart when times were tough. The future of the monarchy no longer rested on the head that wore the crown. It rested on the shoulders of the one strong enough to carry its weight. King Charles saw this very clearly. He noticed how Catherine managed her role with ease, while others struggled. When people avoided problems, Catherine faced them with grace and calm. She never looked for praise or applause. Her strength came from deep inside, shining like a steady, gentle light in the dark. His final message wasn't about giving out power or titles. It was about keeping something precious and safe. The royal family didn't need another person chasing control. It needed someone tender and strong enough to hold on to what truly mattered. In the quiet halls of the palace, one clear truth appeared. Catherine wasn't waiting for a crown or a title. In every way that truly mattered, she already carried the heart of a queen. What do you think? How will the public react to this news? And what path will Kate rule with? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Before you go, be sure to click on the video shown on your screen.